Good day, everyone. Today, I am going to continue our last discussion, and before we proceed to our discussion, let me introduce myself first. I am Chara Casitas, and I am the third reporter of this group. Our discussion for today is all about the new tax rates based on Republic Act 013551. So, let's proceed to our third particulars of this table, and this is the fermented liquors per liters of volume capacity. So, if the NRP excluding excise and VAT per liter of volume capacity is 50.60 and below, during 2013, the tax is 15 pesos. And if more than 50.60 pesos, the tax during 2013 was 20 pesos. So as you can see, in 50.60 and below, there is an increase of 2 pesos every year since 2013. And if more than 50.60 pesos, as you can see also, there is an increase of 1 peso during 2013-2017. But as of January 1, 2018, the specific tax rate shall be increased by 4% every year thereafter, just like in the more than 50.60 capacity of the said products. If brewed and sold at micro breweries or small establishments such as pubs and restaurants, regardless of NRP, a higher specific tax rate per liter, also increasing annually by 4% after 2017. Example for fermented liquors. A liter of fermented liquor with an NRP of 40 pesos was sold at microbrewery in 2017 would have a tax of 31.50. If the same liquor was sold in 2018, the tax would increase by 4%. So let's proceed to the second product, which is the tobacco products. Let's proceed to the second product, which is the tobacco products. So the tax rates for tobacco products are per kilogram and further categorized by how the tobacco is processed. Example is the twisted or reduced tobacco. So the tobacco twisted by hand or reduced in a manner other than ordinary drying and curing, this has a specific tax rate per kilogram, increasing annually by 4% after 2013. And another one is the prepared tobacco. Tobacco prepared or partially prepared with or without the use of any machine or instrument, with or without being pressed or sweetened, this also has the same tax rate as twisted tobacco. Let's proceed to fine cut shorts. Fine cut shorts and refuse, scraps, clapping, cuttings, stems, and other tobacco waste, same tax rate. Another one is the chewing tobacco. Chewing tobacco unsuitable for any other manner has a separate tax rate. Chewing tobacco unsuitable for any other manner has a separate tax rate per kilogram, also increasing annually by 4% after 2013. So example for tobacco products. 1 kilogram of twisted tobacco in 2017 would have a tax of 2.05 pesos. If the same amount of tobacco was sold in 2018, the tax would increase by 4%. Next is the cigars. The tax is levied per cigar and is categorized by two methods of calculation. First is the ad valorem tax, or a percentage-based tax on the net retail price per cigar, excluding excise and value-added taxes. The tax rate was 20% from 2014 to 2017. Next is the specific tax, or a fixed tax per cigar. This rate increased annually by 4% after 2013. Example for cigars. Imagine a cigar with an NRP of 100 in 2017. So let's compute the ad valorem tax. So 100 times 20% is 20 pesos. So in the specific tax, 5.85. So a total excise tax for cigars is 20 pesos plus 5.85 equals 25.85. So let's now proceed to the cigarettes. The tax is per pack and is differentiated by whether the cigarettes are packed by hand or machine. Cigarettes packed by hand, a specific tax rate per pack. The rate increased over a time. In cigarettes packed by machine, the same tax rate as cigarettes packed by hand, also with a 4% annual increase starting in 2024. Let's now proceed to the inspection fees of tobacco products. So the first one is cigars. So 0.50 pesos per 1,000 pieces of fraction thereof. Next is cigarettes. So 0.10 pesos per thousand sticks or fraction thereof. Next, leaf tobacco, 0.02 pesos per kilograms of fraction thereof. And lastly, the scrap and other manufactured tobaccos, 0.03 pesos per kilogram or fraction thereof. Let's now proceed to the petroleum products. Excise taxes are levied on various petroleum products. The rates are per liter of volume capacity unless otherwise specified. The first one is the lubricating oils and greases. Includes but is not limited to base stock for lube oils and greases, high vacuum distillates, aromatic extracts and other similar preparations, and additives for lubricating oils and greases. The tax is based on volume capacity or weight. The next one is locally produced or imported oils. Oils previously taxed but are subsequently reprocessed, refined, or recycled. The tax is per kilogram of volume capacity or weight. The other one is the processed gas. Processed gas is taxed per liter of volume capacity. The next one is denatured alcohol, used for motive power, tax per liter of volume capacity. Next is the kerosene, tax per kilogram. And lastly, the gasoline or just like regular pyrolysis gasoline, etc. This is tax per liter of volume capacity. Example for petroleum products. A liter of locally produced oil that was previously taxed but was reprocessed would have a tax of 8 pesos in January 2018. The tax increased to 9 pesos in January 2019 and 10 pesos in January 2020. The tax rate of petroleum products increased over time. Let's now continue to the other types of petroleum products. So the first one is the unleaded premium gasoline. Tax rate per liter increasing over time. The next one is kerosene. The tax rate per liter increasing over time. Next, aviation turbo or jet fuel or aviation gas. Tax rate per liter increasing over time. Next is kerosene used as aviation fuel. The tax rate per liter increasing over time. Next, diesel fuel and similar fuels. This is taxed per liter of volume capacity. The tax is based on the fuel having more or less the same generating power as other similar fuels. So now let's proceed to the liquefied petroleum gas or LPG for motive power. So this is taxed per kilogram. The next one is bunker fuel oil and similar oils. This is taxed per liter of volume capacity. The tax is based on the fuel having more or less the same generating power as other similar fuels. The next one is petroleum coke. So this is tax rate per metric ton. Next one is naphtha and pyrolysis gasoline. This is used as a raw material in the production of petrochemical products or in the refining of petroleum products as a replacement for fuel for natural gas-fired combined cycle power plants. This is taxed per liter of volume capacity during non-availability of locally extracted natural gas. The next is liquefied petroleum gas when used as raw materials in the production of petrochemical products. This is taxed per kilogram. Next, petroleum coke when used as feedstock to any power generation. The next one is the liquefied petroleum gas when used as raw materials in the production of petrochemical products, and this is taxed per kilogram. And other one is the petroleum coke when used as feedstock to any power generating facility, and this is taxed per metric ton. Here are some examples. A liter of unleaded premium gasoline in January 2018 had a tax of 7 pesos. This increased to 8 pesos in 2019 and 9 pesos in 2020. The next one is A kilogram of liquefied petroleum gas used for motive power in 2020 had a tax of 6 pesos. Now, let's proceed to the minerals and mineral products. These tax rates based on Republic Act 10963 of Train Law. All metallic minerals locally extracted or produced copper, gold, chromite, and other metallic minerals is subject to 4% tax based on the actual market value of the gross output at the time of removal. So, imported copper, gold, chromite, and other metallic minerals is subjected to 4% tax based on the value used by the Bureau of Customs o BOC in determining tariff and customs duties, net of excise tax and value-added tax. The next one is the on indigenous petroleum, a 6% tax based on their international market price at the first taxable sale, barter, exchange, or similar transactions. The praised first taxable sales, barter, exchange, or similar transactions refers to the transfer of indigenous petroleum in its original state to a first taxable transferee. The fair international market price is determined in consultation with an appropriate government agency. For the purpose of the subsection, indigenous petroleum includes locally extracted mineral oil, hydrocarbon gas, bitumen, crude asphalt, mineral gas, and all other similar or naturally associated substances, with the exemption of coal, peat, bituminous shale, and other stratified mineral deposits. For example, for locally extracted copper, if the actual market value of the gross output at the time of removal is 100 pesos, the excise tax would be 4% of 100,000 pesos, so it would be 4,000 pesos. For imported gold, the tax would be 4% of the value used by the BOC in determining the tariff and custom duties, net of excise and value-added tax. This value would need to be obtained from customers' records. For indigenous petroleum, the 6% tax would be applied for the fair international market as price determined by the appropriate government agency. This price fluctuates based on global market conditions. So, let's proceed to automobiles and other motor vehicles. So, the tax rate is tiered based on the net manufacturer's or importer's selling price. So, over 0 or up to 600,000, the tax rate would be 4%. So, over 600,000 up to 1 million pesos, the tax rate would be 10%. Over 1 million pesos up to 4 million pesos, the tax rate would be 20%, and over 4 million and above, the tax rate would be 50%. For examples, a car with a net manufacturer's price of 500,000 pesos would have an excise tax of 20,000 pesos because 500,000 pesos times 4% is equals to 20,000 pesos. Next, a car with a net manufacturer's price of 1,500,000 pesos would have an excise tax of 150,000 pesos because 1,500,000 times 10% is equals to 150,000 pesos. Another example is a car with a net manufacturer's price of 5 million pesos would have an excise tax of 2,500,000 because 5 million times 50% is equals to 2,500,000. Let's continue on non-essential goods. A flat 20% tax is applied based on the wholesale price of import value. This is determined by the Bureau of Customs. For example, if a non-essential good has a wholesale price of 100 pesos, the excise tax would be 20 pesos or 20% of 100 pesos. And now we are going to continue in sweetened beverages. This tax is based on Republic Act 10963 of Trade Law. This section details excise taxes on sweetened beverages based on the type of sweetener used and the volume. For example, the product. The type of sweetener determines the tax rate. So the tax rate is levied per liter. Example, purely caloric sweeteners. 6 pesos per liter. This includes sugar like sucrose, glucose, and fructose. Next is high fructose corn syrup or a mix of calorie and non-caloric sweeteners. So the tax is 12 pesos per liter. Next is purely coconut sap sugar and stevia glycosides. So this is exempt from excise tax. Stevia glycosides are natural sweeteners derived from the stevia plant. For example, a 1 liter bottle of soda sweetened with sugar would have a 6 pesos excise tax. A 1.5 liter bottle of a beverage using high fructose corn syrup would have a 18 pesos excise tax. 12 pesos divided by liter times 1.5 liter. So the answer would be 18 pesos. The next example is a 1 liter bottle of beverage sweetened with stevia would be exempt from this excise tax. The next one is the invasive cosmetic procedures based on tax rate RA 10963 of Trade Law. This section specifies the excise tax on invasive cosmetic procedures service. So the tax applies to the performance of invasive cosmetic procedures. So the tax rate would be 5% tax is applied to the service fee. For example, if an invasive cosmetic procedure costs 10,000, the excise tax would be 500 pesos. So 10,000 times 5% is equal to 500 pesos.
Hello everyone, this is Karen May Taiko, and now I will discuss our next topic, which is documentary stamp. So, documentary stamp tax is a kind of tax that the government collects when you sign important documents. So, these documents usually involve money like loan papers, sale contracts, or property agreements. Basically, when you agree to something big on paper like borrowing money, buying land, or transferring rights, you need to pay a small amount to the government. So the small amount is what we call DST. So let's say, for example, Anna wants to borrow a 100,000 from a bank. So the bank and Anna sign a loan agreements. So because they signed this document, DST must be paid to the government before the loan can be finalized. Whenever there's a formal agreement involving money, especially big transactions, DST is like receipt fee you pay to the government to make the document official. Next is also DST is paid by the person who creates, sign, issues, accept, or transfer a document. But if one of the parties is exempted from paying the tax, then the other party who is not exempt will be the one responsible to pay the DST. So let's say Carla sells land to a government agency. So government agency are usually exempted from DST. So even though the agency is part of the deal, Carla, who is not exempt, will be the one who has to pay the tax. So normally both sides involved in the agreement could be responsible. But if one side doesn't have to pay, then the other side must cover the DST. Next is filing and payment of DST. So the tax return must be filed and the DST must be paid within 5 days after the end of the month. So when a document like a contract or loan agreement was signed, issued, accept, or transferred. So there are two ways to pay DST. So the first one is buy and attach a DST stamp to the document, and the next one is use online system which is called EDST to imprint a secured electronic stamp. So EDST stands for Electronic Documentary Stamp Tax. So for example, if a loan agreement was signed on March 15, the DST must be filed and paid on or before April 5, so 5 days after the end of March. So you can either go to an authorized seller to get a DST stamp and physically stick it to the paper, or use the BIR EDST system to stamp it online. Next is this regulation discusses filing and payment requirements for documentary stamp in the Philippines. Specifically, it states that the return or the document showing the payment of documentary stamp must be filed in triplicate. So the person responsible for filing is the individual or entity involved in creating, signing, issuing, accepting, or transferring documents related to obligations, rights, or properties. This includes things like loan agreements, sales contracts, and assignments. So the filing happens at the same time the relevant actions, making, signing, issuing the document occurs, provided either the obligation or rights originate from Philippine sources or the property involved is located in the Philippines. For example, Maria sells her house in Manila to Juan, so Maria and Juan must both file the return for the documentary stamp at the time they sign the sale contracts. So this is because the property or the house is located in the Philippines. If the transactions had involved a property outside of the Philippines, the filing requirements might be different. So whenever document related to a transactions involving Philippine property or sources is created or transferred, the relevant parties must file a triplicate return for documentary stamp tax payment simultaneously. Next is these sections explain who is responsible for filing the documentary stamp tax return in triplicate. So it focuses on two key groups. So first one is Electronic Documentary Stamp Tax or EDST system users. So this applies to taxpayer in industries that use the EDST system for paying documentary stamp taxes. So this system handles the payment and remittance of taxes electronically. Essentially, businesses using this online system are responsible for filing their tax return through the system itself. So they affix the required digital stamp on taxable documents. So the next one is the revenue collection agents. So this applies to agents who sell loose documentary stamps. They are responsible for remitting the taxes collected from these sales. So for example, is a store that sells documentary stamps to the public is a revenue collection agent. So they must file a return showing the total sales and corresponding tax collected. So in short, the responsibility for filing the documentary stamp tax return depends on whether you are using the EDST system or selling physical stamps. So if you use EDST, you file electronically, and if you sell stamps, you remit the collected taxes. In the both cases, the return is filed in triplicate. Next slide is the regulation outlines the filing procedure or documentary stamp tax. So specifying the location for submission based on the availability of an authorized agent bank or AAB. So the return always filed in triplicate goes to one of two places. First is with an AAB, or if an authorized agent bank operates within the Revenue District Office jurisdictions where the taxpayer resides or conducts business, the return is submitted to that AAB. This simplifies the process by using the bank as an intermediary. Next is with an RCO. If no AAB exists within the relevant Revenue District Office jurisdictions, the return is filed directly with the revenue collection officers of the office. So this is the direct route for the submission. So this system ensures efficient tax collection by directing taxpayer to the most convenient and appropriate processing point depending on their location and available banking infrastructure. So the triplicate filing ensures that all parties have a record of the transactions. Next is this section discusses the consequences of failing to pay the documentary stamp tax. So the key takeaway is that while not paying the tax doesn't invalidate the document itself, it does have significant legal ramification. So non-recordations, the document cannot be officially recorded like in the registry of deaths until the required stamp is affixed and concealed. So this means it lacks official legal standing. Inadmissibility as evidence, the unstamped documents cannot be used as evidence in court. This severely limits its legal value. If no notary acknowledgement, a notary or other authorized officer cannot add their official signatures and affirmation or acknowledgement to the document until the proper stamp is affixed and concealed. This further undermines the document's legal weight. While the document remains technically valid, its practical legal use is completely blocked until the DST is paid and the stamp is properly applied and concealed. So the failure to pay the DST essentially renders the document unusable in any official capacity.
Hello everyone, my name is Shane for you and I'm going to discuss the following documentary stamp taxes payable on documents and instruments. So, bali dito is summarize ko na lang siya since nasa table na rin naman po yung mga important details. So, here in number 1 on the table, we have original issuance of shares. So, original issuance of shares is when a corporation issues a shares of stock for the first time. So, this tax is imposed to ensure that stock issuance are properly documented and that the government receives its fair share from such financial transaction. And we have 3 main categories under which DST applies for original share issuance. If the shares have par value, then the DST rate will be 2 pesos for every number of shares of 200 pesos. If wala naman siyang par value, then the tax is based on the actual selling price or value of each share. For stock dividends naman, tax is based on the value of each share given as a dividend. Next, number 2, sale or transfer of shares, Section 175. So, for transfers like sales or delivery of stocks, the tax rates are with par value. The DST is 1.50 pesos for every 200 pesos. And or fraction naman, which is 0.75% of the par value. And without par value, the DST is 50% paid on the original issue. So, this section ensures that stock transfers are taxed even after the initial issue, reflecting the continuing economic value of ownership. So, next, we have number 3, bonds, debentures, certificates of indebtedness, Section 176. So, according to the tax code, when a Philippine-based company or a foreign entity with a tax presence in the Philippines issues bonds, debentures, certificates of stocks, or indebtedness in foreign countries, a documentary stamp tax or DST is still imposed. So, the applicable rate is 0.75 pesos for every 200 pesos, or an equivalent of 375% of the total par value. So, this tax is applied regardless of where the instrument is issued, as long as it falls under the scope of the Philippine tax system, particularly if the contract involves parties, assets, or operations within the Philippines. And also, this amount must be paid to the Bureau of Internal Revenue or BIR in the Philippines. So, the company must also file the appropriate DST returns and ensure compliance with all regulations. Next, we have the number 4, Property Interest Certificates, Section 177. So, certificates involving interest in property or investments are taxed at 1 pesos per 200 pesos or 0.5% of face value. So, these instruments are typically offered by real estate investment trusts or REITs and property development corporations or cooperative property investment scams. Number 5, we have the bank checks and similar instruments, Section 178. So, each check, draft, or certificate of deposit, even without interest, is subject to a flat DST of 3 pesos. Next naman, number 6, we have the debt instruments. So, what is debt instruments? Debt instruments refer to a written contracts with one party, which is the borrower, agrees to pay a fixed sum to another party, the lender, either at a future date or over a period of time. So, kasama na dito ang promissory note and loan documents. So, the DST is 1.50 pesos per 200 pesos or 0.75 pesos of the issue price. So, and in 7 to 8 naman, on the table, drafts and bills of exchange, sections 182, whether issued or accepted, these documents are taxed at 0.60 pesos per 200 pesos or 30% of the amount involved. So, this section shows that borrowing, lender, and issuing financial documents are all flexible transaction. Next naman, we have the number 10. So, here naman is yung tax niya is nakadepende siya sa amount coverage. So, ibig sabihin lang nito is, the bigger your life insurance, the higher the DST you pay. Next, we have naman po the number 11, Policies of Insurance upon Property, Section 184. So, this refers to non-life insurance like house or car insurance. So, the DST is 0.50 pesos per 4 pesos of the premium or 12.5% of the premium, whichever is higher. Next naman, we have number 12, Fidelity Bonds and Other Insurance, Section 185. So, fidelity bonds is specific type of insurance that protect employers from losses due to the dishonest or fraudulent acts of employees. So, for instance, if an employee embezzles money, the employer can be compensated under a fidelity bond. So, these are especially important in industries where employees handle cash, sensitive records, or company assets. So, same as property insurance, DST is 0.50 pesos per 4 pesos or 12.5% of the premium. So, this section naman make sure that even risk protection through insurance is taxed. Next naman po, we have number 13, Policies of Annuities and Pre-Need Plans, Section 186. So, ano nga ba yung annuities? So, annuities are financial products that provide individuals with a steady stream of income. Usually for retirement purpose, so through a series of payments in exchange for a lump sum or periodic premium. So the tax treatment of annuities is designed to reflect the rule in long-term financial planning and security. So, yung annuities is tax siya at 1 pesos for every 200 pesos of the premium or installment collected, or 0.5% of the of the amount collected. And pre-need plans naman is designed naman siya to address specific future expenses. often related to significant life events such as funeral and burial arrangements or funding for a child's education. So these plans allow individuals to make contributions in advance to secure the necessary funds to cover this cost. So, ang pre-need plans naman is ita-tax naman siya at a lower rate, which is 0.40 pesos for every 200 pesos or 0.2% of the contribution collected. Next naman, 14, the indemnity bonds, section 187. So, indemnity bonds are financial instruments that serve as a promise to compensate individuals or entities for loss or damage incurred due to specific events or risk. So, they are often used in various sectors, including construction, finance, and businesses. So, where there is a need for assurance that potential risk and losses will be covered. So, the DST is 0.30 pesos per 4 pesos or 7.5% of the premium paid. Next naman is 15, certificates, section 188. So, for each official certificate naman issued like birth certificate, that legal documents is a flat tax of 30 pesos applies. Then, number 16, warehouse receipts, section 189. For storing goods naman daw, 30 pesos per receipts is charged. Then, 17, game tickets, section 190. Jai Alay, Lotto, races, and other gaming tickets are taxed. So, 0.20 pesos per ticket price at 1 pesos or less. So, if the ticket exceeds 1 pesos, another 0.20 pesos per 1 pesos is added. So, this tax discourages excessive gambling through taxation. So, number 18, bills of lading or receipts, section 191, used in shipping goods. So, if yung value daw is over 100 pesos, but not over 1,000 pesos, the DST will be 2 pesos. So, if over 1,000 pesos naman siya, then the DST is 20 pesos. Then, freight tickets naman for passenger baggage are exempt from DST. So, this section shows that taxation based on the value of shipped goods. Number 19, we have the proxies, section 192. So, when person daw votes or acts on behalf of another, like in a corporation, 30% tax per proxy document is required. Then 20, we have the powers of attorney, section 193. So, when one person daw is legally authorized to act on behalf of another, then the DST is 10 pesos per document. 21, leases and hiring agreements, section 194. So, DST depends on the amount and duration. So, 6 pesos for the first 200 pesos. So, for amount above 2,000 pesos naman, an extra 2 pesos for every 1,000 pesos is added per year. So, this covers agreement for renting buildings, equipment, etc. Next, we have 22, mortgages, leases, and deeds of trust. Section 195. So, this is for secured loans. So, if the amount is 5,000 pesos or less, tax is 40 pesos or 0.8% for the amount secured. So, if over 5,000 pesos naman, and adding 20 pesos per 5,000 pesos or 0.4% is added. So, higher loans attract proportionally higher DST. Next naman, we have number 23, Sale or Transfers of Real Property, Section 196. So, when you buy or sell real estate, DST is based on the greater of the actual price of fair market value. So, if price is 1,000 pesos or less, 15 pesos or 1.5%, whichever is higher. If more than 1,000 pesos naman, 15 pesos for the first 1,000 pesos plus 1.5% of the excess. So, this ensures that all real estate transactions are taxed fairly. Next naman, we have the charter parties and similar instruments, Section 197. So, these are contracts for leasing ships or vessels. So, yung taxes niya dito is nakadepende siya on the size and duration of vessel leases. So, next naman, we have 25, last on the table, assignments or renewals of instruments, Section 198. So, if an agreement daw is renewed or transferred, it's taxed at the same rate as the original document. So, this ensures continuing revenue from extended or repeated agreements. Here in this slide, it provides a formal definition of what qualifies as a debt instrument under Philippine tax rules. So, specifically in relation to documentary stamp taxes or DST. So, it clarifies that debt instruments are financial tools that represent borrowing and lending activities. So, these include but are not limited to documents such as debentures, certificates of indebtedness, due bills, bonds, and loan agreements. So, the rule also applies to contracts signed abroad, provided the object of the agreement is located in or used within the Philippines. Additionally, the definition extends to instruments and securities issued by the government or its agencies, as well as deposit substitute debt instruments. So, this can be in the form of certificates or other financial props of deposits that earn interest significantly higher than standard saving rates. Here in next slide naman, highlights a specific exemption from documentary stamp tax under Section 199 of the Philippine Tax Code. So, it explains that certain insurance or annuity policies are not subject to DST. So, these exempt policies are those issued by fraternal or beneficiary societies, holders, associations, or cooperative corporations. So, what distinguishes these organizations is that they operate under a lodge system or a local cooperation plan. So, they are also managed and conducted solely by and for their members. So, with the aim of providing mutual benefit rather than generating profit. So, in other words, these are non-profit, member-driven organizations that offer financial protection or savings plan. So, like insurance or annuities for their members.
This is the continuation of the exam of DST, and now we're in the second exemption. It's all about documents katulad ng certificate of oaths or acknowledgement na binigay or natanggap ng government official habang ginagawa ang official duties uh, nila. Include na rin dito ang mga written appearances in court done in their official capacity. Ito ay nag-exempt sila from paying documentary stamps. So these are considered part of their regular responsibilities and are not personal or commercial use, kaya hindi sila subject sa taxation or to taxation. And next, the price of the certificates of the administration of oaths to any person as to authenticity of any paper required to be filled in court by any person or party thereto, whether the proceeding be civil or criminal papers and documentary fields in the courts by or for the national, provincial, city, or municipal governments, and affidavits of poor person for the purpose of providing property. So, this sentence or this exemption is all about use in court, katulad ng uh, certificate na nagpo-provide na ang paper ay tunay, are exempt from paying the DST, especially if these are filled by or for the government. Also, sa mga poor individuals na nagsasubmit ng affidavits para patunay na hindi nila kayang bayaran ang mga gastos sa legal, ay hindi kailangang magbayad ng DST. So, exempt rin ito kasi they serve public and legal purposes, not for the personal or business gains. And next is that the statement and other compulsory information required of person or corporation by the rules and regulation of the national, provincial, city, or municipal governments exclusively for statistical purposes, and which are wholly for the use of the Bureau of Office in which they are filled, and not at the instance or for the use or benefits of the person filing them. So it's all about people or companies must file with the government for statistical reason only, and which will be used solely by the government office. So ito yun ay exempt sila as long as the person is filing, it doesn't benefit directly from that document. And it's also said that the certified copies and other certificates placed upon documents, instruments, and papers for the national, provincial, city, or municipal governments made at the instant and for the sale, use of some other branch of national, provincial, city, or municipal governments, and certificates of the assessed value of lands not exceeding 200 pesos in value as is furnished by the provincial, city, or municipal treasurer to applicants for registration of title to land. So, certified copies or certificate added to official document are exempt from the documentary stamp tax if they are made specifically for use by another government office. Finally, if you're applying for a land title registration, and local treasurer gives you a certificate showing that the land is valued at 200 or less, then the certificate is also exempt from DST. So in summary, this is used for official government work, public service, or helping the poor, and not for the personal gains, are usually not required to pay DST. Next, we're in the slide 2, which is borrowing and lending of securities executed under the Securities Borrowing and Lending Program of Registered Exchange or in accordance with the regulation prescribed by the appropriate regulatory authority. So, ito ay kapag ang securities like stocks or bonds ay hinihiram o pinapahiram ng formal program na minamanage by registered exchange such as the Philippine Stock Exchange natin. Or if the transactions follow the rules set by the government regulatory agency, it is considered exempt from DST. also says in the PPT, which is provide, however, that any borrowing or lending of securities agreement as the contemplated thereof shall be duly covered by a master securities acceptable to the appropriate regulatory authority. So, this exemption only applies if the transaction is considered by a formal master's agreement with which outlines the terms and is approved by the regulatory body. This ensures that the deal is done properly and legally. And it also says in the PowerPoint that which agreement is duly registered and approved by the Bureau of Internal Revenue or BIR. So the agreement must also officially registered and approved by the BIR to qualify for the DST exemption. And now we're in the slide 3, which is the fourth exemption. So this is the specific rules regarding loans agreement or promissory notes na may total amount na hindi lalagpas ng 250,000. So, o kahit anong halaga na pwedeng iset ng Secretary of Finance. So, applicable lang ito sa mga loans na kinukuha ng isang individual para sa pagbili ng gamit through installment para sa mga personal niyang gamit or kanyang pamilya. So, these items may include a house, a lot, motor vehicles, appliances, or furnitures. Importantly, the loan must be intended for business, resales, barter, or hire. The Secretary of Finance the authority to adjust the maximum loan amount based on the relevant price index, pero hindi ito dapat lumagpas ng 10% ng current limit. Kapag naset na ang bagong amount, kailangan itong manatili for at least 3 years, so it aims to make consumer loans more accessible while ensuring they are used strictly for non-commercial personal purposes. Now, next, we're in the slide 4. It refers to the sales, barter, or exchange of shares of stocks that are listed actively traded through the local stock exchange, such as the Philippine Stock Exchange. So it means that the transaction involved the transfer of ownership of the publicly listed shares, whether through direct sales exchange for other goods and services, or in yung barter, or swapping with other securities which is exchange, are subject to specific treatment under the law. So, mas madalas ay exempt ito sa ilang buwis tulad ng DST, since they are already regulated and taxed through the stock exchange system. So, ano nga ba ang purpose nito? Ang purpose nito ay mag-encourage ng active participation into the stock market sa pamamagitan ng pagpapadali at pagbawas sa gastos ng mga transactions. Next, this next topics refers to the assignment or transfer of any mortgage, lessee, or insurance policy, as well as the renewal or continuation of any agreements, contract, charter, or evidence of obligation or indebtedness. Basta walang binago sa due date o coverage period ng original documents, ibig sabihin kung ililipat mo lang sa ibang tao o i-renew yung kontrata ng hindi binabawang terms, lalo na ang maturity date, hindi ito ituturing na bagong agreement. Kaya hindi kailangan magbayad ng panibagong buwis gaya ng documentary tax. So ano nga ba ang purpose? Ang purpose nito ay para maiwasan ang double taxation and unnecessary administrative burdens kung wala namang binago sa original na kontrata. Simple lang, kung same pa rin ang terms, hindi na kailangan ulitin ang proseso o magbayad ulit. And now next, this refers to fixed income and other securities that are traded in the secondary market or through exchange. So, ano nga ba ang fixed income securities? So, it's like the government or corporate bonds provide regular interest payment over a set period. So, when these types of investment ay tinitrade are regulated na market or exchange, the transaction is usually subject to less tax or fewer documentary requirements. So, ang main goal nito ay ini-encourage that the trading and investment in these financial instruments by making the process are more efficient and less costly for investors. So, next is all about the derivatives. So, what is derivatives? Which is, alam na rin natin, which are financial instruments whose value depends on the underlying assets like stocks, interest rate, or currencies. It also states that for the purpose of exemption, likely referring to tax like documents, stamp tax, and repurchase agreements, at reverse repurchase agreements ay itinuturing na parang derivatives pagdating sa exception. Ano nga ang repurchase agreements? Like that. Ang ibig sabihin nito, ang repurchase agreement ay parang short-term loan kung saan ibinebenta muna ang isang security tapos bibilhin ulit later. While ang reverse repo naman ay kabaliktaran nito. By classifying this transaction as derivatives, nagkakaroon sila ng parehong tax advantage o exemption. So, this purpose nito ay para mas mapadali ang paggamit ng ganitong klase ng transaction at para mas gumanda ang daloy ng pera sa financial market. Next, refers to the inter-branch or interdepartmental advances within the same legal entity. So, ito yung pag-transfer ng pera o advances na nangyayari sa loob ng isang kumpanya. Meaning, ay yung mga financial transaction or transfer of funds that happen between different branches or departments of a single company or organizations. Yun. So, since pare-pareho naman sila na under of one legal entity, the transaction is not considered an internal or separate one. Ibig sabihin, treated as a new or independent financial agreement and are not subject to certain taxes or legal requirements like documentary tax. So, example nito. So, sa isang kumpanya, may dalawang branch, isa sa Makati at isa sa Cebu. Kung yung Makati branch ay nagpadala ng 1 million sa Cebu branch para gamitin sa expansion ng operations nila, should this be imposed with a documentary stamp tax? Why or why not? So, ano nga ba? So, ito ay hindi. Di ba? Bakit? Ito ay itinuturing na taxable transaction. Or hindi ito itinuturing na taxable transaction kasi pareho lang silang bahagi ng isang kumpanya. Internal transfers lang ito kaya hindi na kailangan magbayad ng documentary stamp tax o gumawa ng panibagong kontrata. And that's all of my report. And I am Christian F. Castro, and that will be the end of my reporting. Thank you so much.
Good day, everyone. I am the last reporter for this topic, and I will I will continue to discuss about the instrument, documents, and papers that shall be exempt from DST. So, in number 10, sabi dito, all forbearances arising from sales or service contracts including credit card and trade receivables. It means that if you sell a product or provide a service, then you give your customer an extension or longer time to pay for the purchase or service they used. So, including credit cards, credit card debts, and trade receivables. The documents proving that you gave them an extension are no longer required to DST. So, but it's important to remember that there is a condition. Here it says that provided that the exemption be limited to those executed by the seller or service provider itself. So that means that this exemption is only for those documents that are signed by the seller or service provider themselves. So same din po sa mga services or mga credit card and trade receivables. Kung ikaw mismo yung ah, nag nag-grant ng extension or palogit at ikaw din yung pumirma sa document, exempt na po yon. Next is number 11, we have the bank deposit accounts without a fixed term or maturity, which are also exempt from DST. It means that our bank accounts that do not have a specific time frame or when they will mature, like our regular savings account or checking account, are no longer need to be stamped with documentary stamp tax. So for example, if we open an savings account with a bank that we can deposit and withdraw anytime we want, and there is no specific date or year when it will be mature or end, so the paper that proves that we opened that account is no longer covered by DST. The same goes for our checking accounts that we used for everyday transaction. There is no longer a need to stamp the documents related to that because it does not have a fixed term or maturity period. Next, here it states that all contracts, deeds, documents, and transactions related to the conduct of use of business of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas are no longer need to be stamped. It means that all contracts, papers, documents, and all types of business dealings that are directly connected to the operation of the BSP or the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas are no longer need to be paid DST. For example, if the BSP contracts with a company to construct their buildings, or if they buy equipment for their office, or if they sign important papers related to their management of banks here in the Philippines, all those contracts, papers, and business dealings are no longer covered by DST. So this is because the BSP is a government agency that has an important role in our economy, and their main goal is not to make profit but to strengthen the finances of our country. And then next, here it is stated that transfer of property pursuant to Section 40 of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended is no longer required to be stamped. So this means the transfer of property due to a method called the tax-free exchange, or the exchange of property that is not immediately taxed according to our tax law. So, for example, under Section 40 of the National Internal Revenue Code, that if a person or a company exchanges their property for another property, and there are specific rules that are followed for this, so they may not immediately pay tax on the gain or income they obtain from that exchange. Because of this, the document proving that the property has been transferred in this type of transaction is no longer required to be stamped. So what this means is that if there are business restructurings or property exchange that are allowed by law not to be taxed immediately, the documents showing that the property has been transferred are also exempt from DST. So this is so that double or excessive tax will not be paid on these types of business dealings. Next is it states that interbank call loans with maturity of not more than 7 days to cover deficiency in reserve against deposit liabilities, including those between or among banks and quasi-banks. So also do not need to be stamped. So it means that these are loans that occur between banks themselves or between banks and so-called quasi-banks. So quasi-banks is like investment houses that also lend. So these loans are very short term and should not exceed 7 days. And their main purpose is to help a bank or quasi-bank fill the temporary deficiency in reserves they need for the money deposited with them. And then the last, it says that remittances of all overseas Filipino workers or our OFWs upon showing of the same proof of entitlement by the OFW's beneficiary or recipient are no longer need to be stamped. So it means that all money sent by our beloved OFWs are no longer needs to be paid DST. So all that is important is that the person who received the money here in the Philippines can show that he or she is really the beneficiary or the person the OFW sent the money. For example, if an OFW abroad sends money to his or her family here, then his or her spouse or parent collects the money from the bank or any money transfer service. They will no longer be charged DST as long as they show proof that they are really the beneficiary or the one who should receive the money. So they can show their ID with the OFW's name on it or any document that proves that they are the one who sent it. So here is some illustration. So here is the problem. Alpha Corporation, a new company here in the Philippines, issued shares of stock to Mr. De La Cruz on March 8, 2021. So the total value of the shares issued is 250,000, but the par value or face value of those shares is 200,000. So the question is, how much is the documentary stamp tax that must be paid? So based on the illustration given, the way to get the DST on shares of stock in this, so you can get the DST due if you divide the par value of the issued shares by 200. So then multiply it by the DST rate of 2. So in this case, the par value of the shares issued is 200,000. So let's divide the 200,000 by 200. So the answer is 1,000. So then we multiply the 1,000 by the DST rate of 2. So the documentary stamp tax that must be paid is 2,000. And then in number 2, here in our example about documentary stamp tax or DST per shares of stock, the only difference from the first one is that these shares are without par value or have no set face value. So the question here is, if the shares issued have no par value, how much documentary stamp tax should be paid? So based on what is written here, the method of calculating DST for shares without par value is as follows. So the issue price of the shares issued is divided by 200 and then multiplied by the DST rate of 2. So sa case po ng Alpha Corporation, yung halaga ng shares na inisyo ay 250,000. So dahil wala nga pong par value, itong 250,000 na yung gagamitin natin. Kaya i-divide po natin yung 250,000 sa 200. Ang sagot po ay 1,250. Tapos, imumultiply natin yung 1,250 sa DST rate na 2. Kaya, ang documentary stamp tax na dapat bayaran ay 2,500. Number 3, the problem states that the shares, or meaning they have a set par value, were later sold by Mr. De La Cruz for a total of 400,000. However, the computation here focuses on the par value of the issued shares, which is given as 200,000. So remember from our previous discussions that DST on the sale of shares with par value is based on the par value, not the selling price. So the computation shows that par value of the issued shares to 200,000 is being divided by 200, so this gives us 1,000. So this step is essentially figuring out how many 200 units are within the total par value. So then this 1,000 is multiplied by the DST rate for the sales of shares with par value, which is 1.50. So 1,000 multiplied by 1.50 gives us a total DST due of 1,500. So therefore, even though Mr. De La Cruz sold the shares for 400,000, the documentary stamp tax that needs to be paid is based on the original par value of the shares, which leads to a DST of 1,500. Next, in the question number 4, the question asked about the documentary stamp tax due when shares without par value are subsequently sold by Mr. De La Cruz again for 400,000. So, remember our discussion about shares without par value. So, the DST on the original issue was based on the actual consideration for the subsequent sale of shares without par value. The rules are a bit different. So, Section 175 of the Tax Code, as amended, it states that in the case of stock without par value, the amount of the documentary stamp tax herein prescribed shall be equivalent to 50% of the documentary stamp tax paid upon the original issue of said stock. So, to find the DST due on the sale, we need to know the DST paid on the original issue. Looking back to the question number 2, which isn't fully shown but the answer is provided, the DST paid on the original issue of these no par value shares was 2,500. So, according to the rule, the DST due on the subsequent sale is 50% of the original DST. So, the computation is the DST on original issue, which is 2,500, and then imomultiply ng DST rate per subsequent sale, which is 50% or 0.50. So, the DST due is 1,250. So, even though Mr. De La Cruz sold the shares for 400,000, the documentary stamp tax due is only 1,250. Last is all about the sale of real property. So, Pedro sold his vacant lot in Pampanga for 15 million, which was also its fair market value at the time. And then, according to our rules for DST on the sale of real property, the tax is based on either the selling price or the fair market value, whichever is higher. So, in this case, both are same at 15 million. So, the DST rate is 15 for every 1,000 of this value. So, to calculate the DST, we first divide the 15 million by 1,000, which give us 15,000 units of 1,000. And then, we multiply this by the DST rate of 15 per unit. So, this result in a total documentary stamp tax due of 225,000. It's important to note that the original price Pedro paid for that lot is not considered when calculating the DST on the sale. So the tax is based on the value at the time the property changed hands.